Hello, gamers! Welcome back to another lovely... What's up with my hair today? My hair has just been growing out. I'm just trying to see how long I can get it. It's getting real long. My name is Offbeat Outlaw. You've seen the title. You've seen the video. Welcome to another multi-class tier list. It's been a long time since I made one of these for D&D, the tabletop, so I figured now is as good a time as any to make the gosh diddly darn tier list. So today we're going to be doing the Sorcerer. I don't need headphones, I just realized. Now, the Sorcerer is a really interesting class. They are characterized by being a full caster, and they have access to these things called sorcery points. They allow them to manipulate how they cast spells with things like quicken spell, subtle spell, etc. The Sorcerer is... I have been very harsh on the Sorcerer in the past, because it's very much just a bad wizard in a lot of ways, which often has resulted in me maybe ranking it lower than it deserves. But if you're gonna be a whole class in a game and just be a version of the main classes, I don't know. It'd be like if you were a fighter and if you were like the martial class that made less attacks and did less damage than the fighter, and then you're asking me to rank you higher. Like, no. Whoa, before we get into that, we got an actual goddamn sponsor today, Dragonair Silent Gods. Link in the description. We got gift codes for you. You should check them out. Dragonair Silent Gods is an open world RPG with Western theming and Dungeons and Dragons like gameplay, and it has garnered over 10 million downloads, securing the top spot in more than 10 regions since its launch. On November 17th, they introduced Drizzt O'Durden. That's right. The guy, Himothy, the one and only. They also offer tons of other Dungeons and Dragons characters, and you can find them through future seasonal release content. During this collaboration, Drizzt and his Black Panther Gwynny will have an independent and complete storyline. Dragonair Silent Gods has game characters and mechanics that D&D fans will certainly love. It's got dice checks, unique characters, tactical grid-based gameplay. We all know how much you love grids. Nobody likes grids like us. D&D is the most popular TTRPG game in the world. The first phase of Dragonair's collaboration with D&D has just launched. What a time to be alive. Dragonair is now live on Windows, Mac, Steam, Epic, and it's got compatibility on mobile platforms, Androids, and iOS. You can play it anywhere. You can play it while you're pooping. You can play it on your big old gaming rig PC, like a big boy. Click the link in the description box to download the game. Check out the exclusive gift codes to redeem your limited edition packs. That is all. Starting off the tier list, just to let you guys know how I do these tier lists, this middle tier right here, where I'm putting the Sorcerer, this is if you were just full classing. To get above this, you need to be better than just main classing it. If you are worse than main classing, you're in C and D tier. If you're the same, you're in B tier. But A and God tier are reserved for classes that elevate the spell casting and or the abilities of the main class. So, starting off today, we have the Sorcerer. They're in B tier as our test. Let's go. Beginning the tier list ranking, we have the Artificer. The Artificer is characterized by having these infusions that give them access to magic items. Now, the infusions, some of them can be quite good. However, you need to be quite invested in the infusions to get the really, really, really good ones. And let me just check my book. Where's Tasha's? Tasha! Okay, here's Tasha's. You get access to your infusions at second level, but the infusions you get access to are a little different. So we need to take a look at these, what you actually get access to. So a second level Artificer can get access to an alchemy jug, a bag of holding, cap of water breathing, goggles of night, rope of climbing, sending stones, wand of magic detection, and wand of secrets. This is, for the 2-level dip, this isn't much that you're getting, and you're an intelligence caster. At 6th level, you get Boots of Elvenkind, Cloak of Elvenkind, Cloak of the Manta Ray, Eyes of Charming, Gloves of Thievery, Lantern of Revealing, Pipes of Haunting, Ring of Water Walking. So that's still not much, and keep in mind, my definition of main classing means you have more levels in that class than your others. Not doesn't mean that you just started as it. So like, if you are main classing as a Sorcerer, I'm very orange, the fuck?
There's a problem. There's something wrong. Something's going on.
That was very peculiar. If you are main classing as a sorcerer and you're going into artificer, that means you must have at least 7 levels to get these 6th level infusions. A 10th level artificer gets gauntlets of ogre power and stat boosting items. That is way too many levels to get any value out of your infusions. You're not getting much by having an artificer. In fact, I'd say that you're mostly detrimenting yourself. I'm gonna put you into C tier, as it's not as bad as it could be, but it's certainly not as good as it should be. Moving on, we got the barbarian. Oh, fuck, the barbarian. The barbarian is a really, really bad class for spellcasters. I have had people try to convince me that the barbarian is a good multi-class for spellcasters in many an occasion, and they've never had an argument that's at all compelling. You get unarmored defense. That means you can't use mage armor. Unarmored defense does not stack with mage armor. You can only have one source of an armor calculation at once, as per the erratas that have been recently published. So you can't stack unarmored defense with with mage armor. You can either have mage armor or you can have the unarmored defense. It's not worth it. If you're going to be using mage armor, you need at least a 6 in constitution and a 20 in dexterity to get the same value of having nothing in the constitution, and then a bunch in dexterity if you're just using mage armor, or you're just doing the dragon origin sorcerer. Barbarian does not give you that extra armor defense that you would like. It gives you some weapon proficiencies, but that's not necessarily as useful as maybe you'd like it to be. If you want to take fighter, that's maybe a better option. Additionally, some people say that the rage is useful for the sorcerer. No, it fucking isn't. Getting rage on your spellcaster is a really bad thing, because it ends any spell that you might be concentrating on, which, guess what, that's what spellcasters kind of do. And also, you can't cast any spells.
Well, it's good to run away.
I hear you say
It's good to run away.
because it gives you resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. You know what also does that? A fucking cantrip. If you want to hit and run as a sorcerer, which God knows why you're doing that, just take Blade Ward if it's that important to you. It's a cantrip, and it doesn't upset your level progression or your spell slot progression. Barbarian is by far the shittiest possible subclass I think you can possibly get at D tier. I think there's only another class that's going to round out the bottom tier with it, and I think we all know what it's going to fucking be. Next, we have the Bard. The Bard is actually not a terrible idea for the Sorcerer. Yes, it's another full caster. That was weird. Yes, it's another full caster. The only thing that these classes really get is more spell casting, so it's kind of weird. But the thing is the Bard gives you access to buffing tools like Bardic Inspiration, or debuffing tools like the Eloquence Bard. If you take 3 levels of Bard, you get access to the Eloquence Bard's ability to debuff saving throws, making the Sorcerer spells much more effective. It also gives you more spells that you can know, meaning that the Sorcerer's incredibly limited spell list can be well remedied by the Bard's at least somewhat larger spell list. These two classes work very well together. I think they're a really, really solid thing, and I think a Bard Sorcerer, that's like a few levels of Bard, can really, really help your average Sorcerer in being more effective. So for that, I'm actually going to put the Bard into A tier for now. A Sorcerer Bard is actually a really, really strong multi-class to take. Next up, we have the Cleric. The Cleric is a weird, peculiar choice for a Sorcerer. It requires Wisdom in order to multi-class into it, and also the Cleric takes Wisdom stuff for its spells. Yes, there are some really good channel divinities that you can get for only a 2-level dip, but I think there's more value to be gained out of not. It doesn't upset your spell slot progression, which is a point in the Cleric's favor, but I think there are better options for you. For example, the Bard. There is also the fact that a Cleric Sorcerer does have access to a very high damage build if you go Tempest Cleric as your dip, so I think that there is some value here. The more I think about it, one specific subclass does not a whole class make. I'm going to say that it's roughly in the same tier as if you were doing a full class of it. So I'm going to keep the Cleric in the same spot as the Sorcerer. Next, we have the Druid, another full caster, but this one is less good than the Cleric Sorcerer. You see, if you're going Sorcerer and then a dip into Cleric, there's some really useful channel divinities you can get. If you're going Sorcerer and then you're dipping into Druid, you're basically wasting your time. There's nothing for you in the Druid that I think a Sorcerer really wants. Oh, well, you can do Moon Druid and get access to a bear form. Okay, so you can't cast spells and just be a stupid fucking useless bear? Great. That's so awesome. There's no point to do it. There's no reason to be an animal on the battlefield unless that's your whole thing. Unless you are a druid, there's no reason for you to do that. Maybe you can polymorph, but then again, sorcerers have access to polymorph. Why are you giving up 2 whole levels of your class so that you can do what you can already do with a 4th level spell? Why would you do that? That is a complete waste of your time. There's no reason for you to do it. There are many, many other things you can be doing with those levels. I think that the Druid Sorcerer is very, very bad. I would put it into C tier. Next, we have the Fighter. Oh, the Fighter. They're not as strong in Baldur's Gate 3, but we're not talking about Baldur's Gate 3. We're talking about D&D 5th edition, baby. And in 5th edition, Fighter is the creme de la creme of multi-classes. It is super, super powerful. It is always useful. The main reasons being that in D&D, there are not a lot of ways to gain extra actions like you can in Baldur's Gate, and that are at least as useful as regular actions. Haste in D&D, you can only use to make a single weapon attack or like interact with objects. You can't cast spells with it like you can in Baldur's Gate in D&D, but you can do that with Action Surge. A lot of people like to disagree with me on this point, and a lot of people are wrong. So just to reiterate, with a Fighter's Action Surge, you actually can cast 2 leveled spells in your turn. The reason why you can do that is because the leveled spell rule only applies if you cast a spell that's a bonus action on your turn. Then you can only cast a cantrip. Otherwise, if you cast a spell as an action surge, you can cast another spell as an action. This is confirmed via Jeremy Crawford's Twitter, and this is confirmed through errata and whatnot throughout the years. You can do this. If you don't like it in your games, that's fucking whatever, but it's still rules as written. You're allowed to, and it's how the Eldritch Knight was balanced. So, because this is one of the only ways you can cast multiple spells in a turn that are of a leveled value, I'm going to put the Fighter's Trait into God tier. This is the easiest way to double up on your action economy. It is super useful. Sorcerer gains a lot of benefit from a fighter, and also you gain access to armor and weapon proficiencies. Armor proficiencies, you now no longer need mage armor, and it's better than unarmored defense in any case. So, this is way, way, way useful. Next up, we have the Monk. I loved how good you were in Baldur's Gate. I hate how shit you are in 5th edition. The Monk is by far one of the weakest classes in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, purely due to the lack of features. It's alright levels 1 through 10, but post that it is completely worthless. And it gives nothing to the Sorcerer, which is the namesake of this entire video. The Sorcerer wants to be casting spells, quickening them, heightening them, doing extra shit with it. What does a Monk give it? It gives it an armored defense. There are classes that give it better defenses and better armor classes than some shitty unarmored defense that requires them to dip into both dexterity and wisdom in order to get any sense of value. It gives them extra movement speed. There are classes that do that don't have a resource attached to them, so they may as well class into that instead. Every single thing that a monk can give you, another class will give you better. And even if you say, well, there's no class that gives you all of that, reminder, the armored defense is pointless to get in the first place. It's not giving you anything. It is a valueless feature for a sorcerer because they're not dipping into their wisdom ever. Or if they are, they're going to be a shitter sorcerer, which once again makes the point, the fact that they're going to be worse at their main job. The monk gives the class nothing. The extra movement speed is the only thing you might even possibly think it gives you, but even then there's another class on this list that gives it to it much better. I'm going to put monk in D tier. It is bad. Next, we have the paladin. The paladin is an interesting one. You see, if you dip into paladin, you can completely change the way that your class plays, and I think that's really, really unique. If you go 6 paladin and then everything else sorcerer, you are a really interesting character. You have smites, you can quicken spell to get some other stuff out on your turn. You are a really powerful melee character who can also quicken spell cast fireballs. I think that's a really interesting and unique dynamic. I think the paladin is super strong. I'm gonna put it into an easy A tier. The only thing that you should say is it does require you to dip a bit into your strength if you want to get some value out of that, or actually you just need to get to 13 strength and then focus the rest on dexterity and charisma, and you're going to be super solid because you can just take a finesse weapon, use that instead of a strength weapon, and you are going to be super solid on the battlefield. It is a bit more mad than maybe some of the other classes, so I'm going to put that at a solid A tier. I'm not going to put it any higher, but I do think that the paladin sorcerer is an incredible combo. It does change how you play. You have to play like a martial, but it does make it still super useful. The ranger, oh boy, once again giving you fuck all nothing, the wisdom dexterity classes. Ranger does not give you nearly as much as you'd maybe like it to. It's not as bad as people think in general, but it's still not great in this scenario. Unlike the other half caster, the paladin, which gives you access to alternate ways to play. The Ranger doesn't really do that. You can upcast some of their spells, but their spells are very specific to being effective as a Ranger. You really want to be a main class Ranger. You don't want to be a multi-class Ranger. It's not a great position to be in. They don't really give you much. They do give you martial proficiencies and armor proficiencies, but once again, it's very multi-attribute dependent, or mad, as people say. I think that the Ranger is not a very solid pick. I think there's simply just better options. There's no reason to really do this. I'm going to put this in D tier, but I'm going to put it above the Monk, and I'm going to put it... The Monk and the Barbarian in this one are fighting for bottom place. Next, we have the Rogue. The Rogue is really cool. The Sorcerer Rogue is a really interesting class combination, as long as you don't dip too much into Rogue. Rogue's main feature that it gets is its sneak attack, but that's not really useful for you as a sorcerer. The main thing we're looking at here is its cunning action, which allows you to take a dash or hide action as a bonus action. This can help make you less squishy, and it can also give you more mobility on the battlefield that doesn't require spell slots like a Misty Step or Dimension Door does. It's a very useful tool. However, the Sorcerer really likes its bonus action for quicken spells, so this does kind of bring down the Rogue, I think, overall, but it doesn't mean that it's a bad class in general. I think the Sorcerer Rogue is still really solid. I think it just gives you a little bit more options. I don't think it's so useful as to being better than your standard Sorcerer, because the Sorcerers would normally just get more spells as a result. So I'm just gonna put it in B tier. I don't think it's better. I think it's just, it's kind of here, you know? It just sits in the same position. Next, we have the Warlock. This is one of the classes where the Warlock multi-class shines. It absolutely shines. It is one of the few ways you can get access to Eldritch Blast and its Invocation and Agonizing Blast, which means that you now, as a sorcerer, have access to the best cantrip in the entire game, Eldritch Blast. You can deal way more damage, you're going to be way more effective, you can save your resources and your sorcery points for other shit, you no longer are going to be lagging behind in damage. The Warlock allows you to be in a much better position. You now only need Charisma for basically fucking everything. You get Hexblade's Curse, you get Hex, you get Spirit Shroud. It's just a generally good move to do. I would always suggest taking up a Warlock if you're a sorcerer. Above and beyond the best possible multi-class for a sorcerer. I'm going to put this into God tier. Sorcerer Warlock's a staple of the game. Take it every chance you can. It's super useful. Finally, we have the Wizard. The Wizard is a interesting thing. You see, the Wizard is one of those classes that really benefits from if you dip all the way into it. It's not great otherwise. However, I can't fault it too much because it does give you some more spells and it doesn't ruin your spell slot progression. If you go 18 Sorcerer and 2 Wizard, you can get access to some really useful subclass abilities from those many Wizard subclasses, while also getting access to a lot more first level spells, and first level spells are actually really important. A lot of people really think about the high level spells as being important for high level play. They're not. The most important spell you can get for low level play is actually Shield, Absorb Elements, and Silvery Barbs. Those 3 spells are the defensive suite of your reactions, and being only 2 levels in Wizard means that you can save your Sorcerer levels for learning some more damaging stuff and only use Wizard to pick up those that defensive suite and then a few extra utility spells. So if you take a 1 level dip in Wizard, you're gonna find yourself just having a much easier time overall. I think that it being a 1 level dip in Wizard makes the Sorcerer slightly better. I think there's definitely a reason to do it because the Sorcerer spell slot is spell list is so limited. I think there's a really good reason to do it. I think a Sorcerer Wizard is really strong. And this is the tier list. Let me know what you guys think. I think I did a pretty good job on this one. I think I've been very fair. Where did I rank your favorite Sorcerer multi-class? Are you the Sorcerer Monk mains who are gonna tell me that, no, don't you worry, guys. We're definitely strong if you ignore the fact that we're bad. But that is all. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you had an amazing day. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you didn't, go fuck yourself. Get the fuck out of my house.